The alien girl's strange request asterisk. The night was cold and quiet around the outer border of human refugee sector 9 old. Tents stood crooked in the dirt, and the smell of burned wiring, mixed with rust and oil in the air. Humans and aliens lived nearby, but never truly together. Both sides had seen too much war, too much death. Now they just tried to survive. At the edge of the human checkpoint, a small figure stood. Guards blinked and looked again. It was a young alien girl with light purple skin and glowing eyes like stars. She was barefoot and held a small blanket around her shoulders. Her thin frame shivered, but her voice was steady when she spoke human. "My mother needs a husband." Guards stared at her like she had lost her mind. One laughed, but the other one just frowned. The girl didn't smile or run away. She only looked at them with big wet eyes that had seen too much pain. "She cries herself to sleep every night since my dad left. She doesn't eat. She doesn't talk. She just stares at the tent walls and whispers his name." Older guard finally stepped forward and knelt down. "How old are you?" The girl answered softly. "I'm 6 cycles old." That meant maybe 9 or 10 in human years. Too young to carry such pain in her voice. "We're not matchmaking services, little one." The guard tried to stay kind, but the girl's eyes didn't leave his face. She said, "If someone doesn't come soon, her heart will break." Behind the checkpoint, Daniel stood quietly holding a box of spare mechanical parts. He had been repairing generators all day and smelled like oil. But when he heard the girl's voice, his chest felt heavy. He didn't speak, didn't move, just listened. Girl was taken gently by the guards and given food, a place to sleep. But Daniel couldn't stop thinking about her words, not even when he returned to his small room near the machine depot. Her mother cries herself to sleep every night. He didn't even know her name, didn't know what species she belonged to, didn't know what happened to her father, but those words wouldn't leave his mind. Daniel wasn't a soldier or a leader, just a repairman who fixed things that people forgot. Maybe, just maybe, he could fix this too. The next morning, Daniel skipped his work assignment and walked straight to the alien refugee zone. It was a place most humans avoided, not out of hate but discomfort. No one wanted to see the sad eyes of those who had lost everything. He showed his ID at the checkpoint and entered the camp. Most tents were patched with scrap. Small alien children peeked from behind fabric flaps. Old beings sat in silence around small fires. He asked about the girl. Some of the refugees pointed toward a far tent near the edge. Inside, he found her again. The girl sat beside a woman lying on a thin mattress. The woman's eyes were open but unfocused. Her skin had lost its glow. Her breathing was slow but steady. The girl stood up when she saw him. "You came." She said it like she had always known he would. "I don't know why," Daniel replied as he set down a small pack of food and water. "But I heard what you said." The woman didn't speak at first, but slowly she turned her head and looked at him. There was beauty in her alien features, but her soul looked tired. "You are human," she whispered. "Yes," Daniel said. "And you came anyway." "I just came to help. That's all." The girl sat between them and smiled. She took Daniel's hand and pressed it to her mother's cold fingers. "She's Carell. My name is Lyra. Your uncle human." Now Daniel didn't know what to say, but he didn't pull his hand away. Outside the wind blew. The world was still broken. But something inside that little tent, a mother, a daughter, and a stranger who had come to fix what others ignored, had just begun to change. And in that moment, for the first time in many nights, Carell blinked and a single tear rolled down her cheek, not from pain, but something close to hope. The human who listened. Daniel didn't plan to return the next day, but when morning came, his feet moved on their own. His tools hung from his belt and a new ration pack rested in his hands. The image of the little girl's eyes and her mother's silent face had haunted his sleep. He tried to convince himself it was just pity, just kindness. But deep down something warmer had started to grow. He stepped through the refugee gate. This time the guards didn't stop him. They only nodded as if they understood. Inside the camp, Lyra ran to him like he was an old friend. Her smile was wide and real, a rare thing in a place filled with grief. "You came back," she said while hugging his leg. "I told "Mom, you would." Daniel gave her a soft smile and handed her the food. "Is she feeling better?" She nodded, but her eyes flicked toward the tent. She didn't cry last night. She just stared at the stars inside. The tent. Carol sat up against the wall, her blanket wrapped around her like armor. She didn't speak when Daniel entered, but she didn't look away either. Her silver eyes locked onto his, and for a moment he saw a storm behind them. "I brought this," he said, "just basic rations and a blanket and some tools in case anything's broken." Carol finally spoke. "Why do you keep coming here?" Her voice was low but not cold. Daniel sat near the tent wall and shrugged. "Because your daughter asked me to." Silence filled the space again, until she let out a soft breath. "She's too young to carry this pain, but she does it for me." Daniel began checking a broken heater near the tent wall. It buzzed once, then died again. He opened the panel and got to work. His hands moved fast. Wires twisted, sparks flew, and then the heater hummed softly to life. Carol blinked at the warm air. It had been cold for days. "You fixed it," she said quietly. "That's what I do." Daniel answered. Lyra danced around happily, her little hands trying to catch the heat. Carol watched her daughter, and her lips twitched almost like a smile, but not quite. "My mate disappeared 2 cycles ago," she said suddenly. "One day he left to find food and never returned. We waited. I searched. I screamed into the wind, but no answer came back." Daniel listened, really listened. No one else had done that in so long. Carol looked at him and asked, "Why are you still here?" "Because no one should carry this alone," he said. Lyra crawled into her mother's lap, her tiny arms wrapped around Carol's waist. "Mom," she whispered, "can Daniel stay longer? He makes the tent warm." Carol didn't answer, but her hand touched her daughter's head gently. Then her eyes met Daniel's. "You can stay, but only until the heater breaks again." Daniel laughed. Fair enough. From that day forward, he came every evening, sometimes with tools, sometimes with small gifts, sometimes with nothing at all except his time. He cleaned the solar panel on the roof, repaired the leaky water tube, fixed the light that flickered too much. Each time he stayed longer. Each time Carol said a little more. One night she even shared a story from her homeworld, before the war, before the fear. Daniel never interrupted. He listened, not as a human to an alien, but as one soul to another. Outside the camp, whispers began to grow. Some humans didn't like it. A man spending time with an alien family. They called him soft, called him broken. Daniel didn't care. He kept returning, because each time he did, Carel's silence faded just a bit more, and Lyra's laughter grew louder. But something else grew too. A strange feeling Daniel couldn't name. It wasn't love yet. It was something gentler, like the first breath of spring after a long, cruel winter. And when Carel offered him tea made from alien roots and sat beside him instead of across the tent, he realized she had stopped crying. A broken family, a kind stranger. Days passed, then weeks. Daniel became a familiar figure in the alien section of the refugee zone. The children ran to him when they saw his worn brown boots appear near the old gates. He always had something in his hands, a fixed radio, a can of oil, or a small snack from the human camp. But the only tent he entered was Carel's. Inside that small patch shelter, something quiet but powerful was healing. Carel no longer sat curled up in the corner. She now swept the floor. In the mornings, cleaned Lyra's hair with boiled water, even lit a small fire when Daniel came to visit one evening. As the sky turned purple from the setting sun, Daniel arrived holding a handcrafted toy. It was a small wooden bird that flapped its wings when the tail was pulled. He had carved it himself. Lyra's eyes lit up, and she hugged him without a word. Carel stood behind her, watching in silence, her expression unreadable. "You made this?" she finally asked. "Yes," Daniel answered. "Took me half a day. I'm not great at carving, but I wanted her to have something real, not just survival." Carel stepped closer, her fingers brushed the edge of the toy. "Real? That's rare these days." She sat down near the fire. Lyra began to hum softly as she played with the toy bird. Daniel sat across from Carel. The silence between them was no longer heavy. It felt peaceful. "She told me about "The night you found her," Daniel said. The guards didn't believe her at first. But she didn't give up. She's brave. Just like her mother. Carol looked into the flames. "My mate was brave too. He fought during the second border conflict. He went out one night to stop raiders from entering the camp. He never returned. Some say he was taken. Others say he ran. And what do you believe?" Daniel asked. Carell paused. "I believe he died protecting strangers. And no one remembered his name." The fire crackled. The wind outside picked up. Daniel pulled his jacket tighter. He wanted to reach out, say something comforting, but nothing came. So instead he listened. "I was angry," Carell continued, "at him, at the war, at the universe. I didn't want anyone near us again. But then Lyra saw you, and I watched her smile again after so long. So I stayed quiet and watched you too." She looked at him now, directly. "Strong you. Not like the others." Daniel shifted slightly. "What do you mean other humans avoid us? They don't hate us, but we remind them of things they want to forget. Loss, pain, the war they helped end, but couldn't erase." Daniel nodded slowly. "I know. Sometimes it's easier to look away than to look at what hurts. That's why I didn't expect you to return after that first night," Carell admitted. "But you did, again and again, because I don't look away," Daniel said quietly. A strange silence fell between them, not cold, but deep, like the moment before a new song begins. Then Lyra broke it with a giggle. She had balanced the toy bird on her head. Carell laughed softly, a true laugh, not forced, not tired. Daniel looked at them and felt something shift inside, like a key turning, like a door slowly opening. But outside the tent, not everyone was smiling. Whispers had started in the human camp. They called him the alien's pet, said he was being manipulated, that no good could come from mixing with another species. One evening a man named Holton approached Daniel outside the machine. "Depot, you're spending too much time with those things." Holton said, "We all see it. You think they care about you. You're just a tool to them." Daniel didn't raise his voice. He just looked the man in the eye. "If helping a grieving mother and her child makes me a tool, then I'll stay one." Holton spat at his feet and walked away. Daniel returned to the tent that night, his knuckles bruised, his lip cut. Lyra gasped when she saw him. "Who hurt you?" she asked. Daniel knelt down and smiled. "No one that matters." Carell touched the bruise gently with a wet cloth. Her fingers lingered too long. Her breath caught, and Daniel felt that strange warmth again. She didn't say thank you. She didn't have to, because in that moment, under the soft firelight, Daniel realized something. He was no longer fixing a broken tent. He was becoming part of something, something that couldn't be built with tools. A broken family was becoming whole again, and he was right in the center of it. She doesn't smile, but she doesn't cry. Rain fell slow and soft on the camp roofs that night. Water trickled down the seams of patched tarps and soaked into the dirt paths between the tents. But inside Carell's tent, it was warm, not just because of the repaired heater Daniel had installed, but because the silence was no longer heavy. Daniel had begun leaving small things each time he visited. Extra fire cubes, a handmade mug, a pair of soft gloves for Lyra. They weren't gifts. He never called them that. He just left them there like they belonged. Carell no longer flinched when he entered. She didn't smile, but she didn't cry anymore either. And somehow that was enough for Daniel. Lyra played with the wooden bird on the floor, chirping quietly to herself. Daniel sat beside the tent wall, tightening bolts on a broken lantern. Carell watched him from across the fire pit, her hands wrapped around the mug. He'd mad. "A hour quiet today," Daniel said without looking up. Carell tilted her head. "I'm always quiet." "You're quieter than usual." She didn't answer for a moment. Then finally, "I heard what they're saying about you. The other humans, they think you've gone too far." Daniel didn't stop working. "Let them talk. They don't know you, and you do." Carell asked softly. Daniel met her eyes. "Not everything, but I want to." Carell stared at him, not with fear, not with anger, but something like hesitation. "You've lost things too, haven't you?" He nodded slowly. "My brother died in the early days of the war. He was helping evacuate an alien outpost. He never came back. People said it was a waste helping the enemy, but I didn't see enemies, only people who were scared and dying." Carell looked away. Her hands tightened around the mug. My people blamed yours for many things. But war breaks everyone, not just one side. The fire cracked between them. Outside, the wind carried voices from nearby tents. The low hum of life continued. But something was changing. That night, Carell didn't say goodbye when Daniel stood to leave. Instead, she walked him outside the tent. She didn't touch him. But she stood there in the rain beside him, just for a few seconds. When he left, Lyra waved from the flap. "See you tomorrow, Uncle Human." But tomorrow never came the way Daniel expected. He woke to voices shouting near his quarters. Someone had thrown his tool chest into the mud-red paint, marked across his door, a writer. He cleaned it in silence. Didn't report it, didn't ask questions. But the damage was deeper than paint. At the repair station, his supervisor wouldn't meet his eyes 2 shifts later. His ID was revoked from certain areas of the camp. The message was clear: stop helping them or lose everything. But Daniel wasn't afraid not of losing tools or titles he had already lost what mattered during the war. Now he had found something else. That evening, he returned to Carell's tent. But this time, he had nothing in his hands. Carell noticed no tools, no bag, nothing. "They're making it harder for you," she said. "Yeah." Daniel replied, "You'll be pushed out soon." "Maybe," he answered. Carell stared at the flames. "And if they force you to choose between us and them, what then?" Daniel looked at her, truly looked at the lines around her eyes, at the strength in her voice despite the pain in her heart. "Then I choose you," he said. Carell didn't move, didn't speak. But that night, for the first time, she didn't sit across the fire from him. She sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders brushed, close enough that he could hear her breathing steady. She still didn't smile, but she didn't cry. Lyra curled up between them, the toy bird resting on her chest, her small voice soft as sleep took her. We're not alone anymore. And Daniel knew no matter what the council said, no matter what threats came tomorrow, he wouldn't turn back. He had already chosen. Accused and banished. The morning started with shouting. Daniel was woken by fists pounding on his door. Not just one man, a group, voices filled with anger, disgust, and warning. "Traitor, alien lover." He didn't even flinch. He opened the door, calmly saw 4 human workers standing outside. One of them was Holton, the man who had warned him weeks ago. "You've embarrassed the entire sector," Holton spat. "Sleeping in tents with those things, feeding them, caring for them, like they're one of us." Daniel didn't argue. He didn't shout back. He just stood in the doorway and let the words fall like rain. "You're banned from human command posts. You're no longer authorized for ration access. Pack up, leave before sundown, or we throw you out ourselves." Group walked away, spitting on the ground as they left. Daniel looked around his empty room. The tools he once used, the spare batteries and metal coils, none of them mattered now. He didn't pack much, just a small satchel and the wooden carving knife he used to make Lyra's toy. Everything else he left behind by sundown. Daniel walked to the alien sector. The guards didn't question him. They had heard. Everyone had heard. Word traveled fast. The human who gave up everything for a mother and her daughter who didn't even belong here. When Carell saw him walking toward the tent with nothing but a small bag, she stepped outside slowly. Lyra ran out and hugged his leg. "You came back again," her voice full of happiness. But Carell's eyes filled with something else, shock and guilt. "Why?" she whispered. "They've stripped you of everything." Daniel looked at her. "I didn't lose anything that mattered. I kept my choice." Carell lowered her gaze. Lyra looked between them, confused. "You can stay in our tent," Lyra said excitedly. "Right, Mom, he can stay forever." Carell didn't answer at first. Daniel waited. He didn't push. Later that night, the 3 of them sat by the small fire. Lyra had fallen asleep early, her tiny arms wrapped around the toy bird, its wooden wings broken, but still beautiful. Carell watched her daughter sleep, then turned to Daniele. "Don't understand you. Why risk so much for someone broken like me? Because you're not broken. You're just tired of hurting, and no one deserves to hurt forever." Carell's voice was soft. "You've lost your job, your status, your home, and you still sit beside me. Why?" "Because," Lyra smiles now, "because you don't cry every night. Because I'd rather sit here in this tent than sleep alone in a metal box surrounded by men who forgot how to feel." Rel's fingers trembled as she reached for the small cloth she had been mending. She gripped it tightly. "I never asked you to save me, didn't come." "To save you," Daniel said. "I came because you matter." The fire dimmed. Silence returned. And then Carell whispered, "You're not like my mate. He was bold, fierce, a warrior. You're quiet." Daniel nodded. "I fix things. That's all I ever knew how to do." Carell reached for his hand. Her fingers were warm and shaking. "Then fix this," she said. "Fix us." Daniel didn't pull away that night. He slept on the floor beside them. No fire, no roof, no army, just a tent made of old cloth, a child between them, and the slow, quiet breathing of two people trying to learn how to live again. And for the first time, Carell didn't dream of her lost mate. She dreamed of a future with someone who chose her, even when the whole world walked away. The council's ultimatum. Sun rose slow and cold over the camp. Its pale light stretched across dusty ground and tired tents. But something was different that morning. Whispers moved faster than wind. From one shelter to the next, from alien to human, the human who gave up his home was now living in the alien sector. Some saw him as mad. Others called him brave. But the human council saw a problem by noon. 4 armored enforcers arrived at the camp, not at Daniel's old quarters, but directly at Carell's tent. Carell stepped out to meet them. Lyra stayed inside clutching her toy. Daniel stood at Carell's side, calm, unmoving. Councilman Vexer spoke first, his voice sharp and cold like metal. "This has gone far enough. You are harboring a human refugee, a former citizen stripped of privilege. You are violating the separation rules between alien and human." Zones Carell's voice was steady. "He came to us with nothing and gave us everything. Is not your decision to make." Vexer snapped. "If he does not leave by nightfall, we will remove him by force, and your family will be exiled beyond the wall." Lyra peeked from the flap, tears already forming. Daniel placed a gentle hand on Carell's shoulder. "I won't let them hurt you if I leave quietly. Maybe they'll stop." Carell turned to face him, and for the first time her eyes were blazing. "You came to fix what others broke, and now they want to break you in return. I will not allow it." Carell stepped forward, past Daniel, past the enforcers, past the whispers, marched toward the human meeting tent near the center of the camp. Aliens followed behind, curious, silent, watching. Council gathered inside. Vexer sat tall, annoyed, unimpressed. Carell didn't bow, didn't ask permission to speaking my culture. She said, "When someone protects your child and sits beside your pain, that person is not a stranger. They are family. He is not an outsider. He is one of us now." Vexer raised a hand to silence her. "You have no right to declare that. We decide what's allowed in this colony, not emotions, not lost traditions." "Then listen to this," Carell said. "If you exile him, you exile us too." Gasps filled the tent. Even some human guards looked unsure. "You would leave safety for a single human man?" Vexer asked. Voice didn't shake. "He gave us back our lives, our hope. He stood beside us when everyone else walked away. Yes, I would leave for him, and many others would follow behind." A group of alien families had gathered. Some raised their hands, others nodded. Daniel stood at the back, silent, stunned. He had come with nothing, and now these people, these strangers, were ready to lose everything for him. Vexer looked at his council, saw the unease, the uncertainty. The alien zone was growing. Too many voices, too many hearts willing to defy them. He slammed his hand on the table. "Fine. Then let him stay, but under one condition. He is no longer human in our records. No ID, no rights, no protection. Let's see how long he lasts as one of y'all." Carell said nothing. She turned to Daniel and extended her hand. "Come home." Daniel stepped forward, took her hand. He didn't need titles, because that night, as the camp quieted, as whispers turned to stories, as a fire glowed inside their little tent, he sat with Carell and Lyra, no longer a visitor, no longer a helper, but truly theirs. And when Carell leaned against him, eyes half closed, and whispered, "They can't take you from us now," Daniel knew he had been chosen, not by a system, not by law, but by something stronger. Family. "My mother smiles again." Morning in the refugee camp looked different now. Not because the sky changed, or because the dirt paths were cleaner, but because one tent near the edge, now felt like a home. Daniel was no longer a visitor. He woke to Lyra snoring softly between him and Carell. The patched fabric above them flapped in the wind, and the scent of warm root tea drifted from the fire outside. Carell was already up, her hands moving with care as she stirred the pot, her eyes calm, focused. There was something in her face that hadn't been there before. Peace. She looked up when Daniel stepped out. "You snore louder than Lyra," she said. He laughed quietly, not sure if that was a compliment, but she smiled, and for the first time it wasn't small. It wasn't brief, it was real. Lyra rolled out of the tent moments later, still hugging her wooden bird, still barefoot, still smiling as if the world had already been fixed. Daniel took the tools he still had left and walked through the alien zone, fixing broken solar panels, patching torn tents, sharpening blades for those who asked politely. He asked for no payment. Sometimes he came home to Carell humming, sometimes to silence, but never to tears. But things outside their zone were shifting. A message came from Central Command, not to Daniel, but to Carell. They had heard what happened. Some officials were not pleased, others were curious. Why had this human become a symbol? Why had an alien woman and her daughter risked exile for him? They requested her appearance for a formal review, not a punishment, but something more delicate, a re-evaluation of policy. Carell told Daniel over dinner. He didn't say anything at first. He just nodded. "Are you afraid?" she asked. "No, I'm proud. Will you come with me?" she asked again. Of course, the review happened in a sterile metal building, far from the tents. There were no weapons, but the walls felt like they could close in at any moment. Carell stood straight. Lyra sat beside Daniel, her hand wrapped tightly in his. One official asked the question directly. "What is he to you? A guest? A helper? A friend?" Carell looked at Daniel. "He didn't speak. He didn't have to. He is family," she said. "Is this some cultural declaration?" "They asked some ritual." "No," she replied. "It's a choice." They asked more, pressed for details. How long had he lived with them? What did he do? Why did she risk her status for a human? And finally, what are your intentions toward him? Carell smiled gently, then said the words clearly, "If you will have us, we want him as our own. My daughter already calls him her protector, and I am ready to call him more than that. If he chooses." The room went silent. Daniel looked at her, eyes wide, heart pounding. He hadn't expected that, not here, not now. But Carell wasn't afraid. She stood in front of everyone, proud, tall, alien, beautiful in her strength. And then the strangest thing happened. One official stood, a gray-haired woman with quiet eyes. She said, "We have seen many things during this war, anger, loss, suffering, but today we witnessed something else." She turned to Daniel. "What is your answer?" He looked at Carell, then at Lyra, then back at the official. "I already chose them." Before anyone asked, the council didn't cheer, didn't clap, but no one objected, and that was enough. They left the building hand in hand, Lyra skipping ahead, laughing, singing at the camp. The aliens welcomed them with quiet nods and warm eyes. Daniel didn't need a ceremony, didn't need approval that night. As the fire burned low and the stars blinked above them, Lyra curled up between them and whispered, "I told you." He just had to see her smile again. Carell leaned against Daniel, her eyes closed, her breath soft, and this time when Daniel looked at her, she wasn't broken. She wasn't waiting for rescue. She had rescued herself and taken him with her together. They had built something stronger than war, stronger than judgment, stronger than fear, of family. And finally Carell smiled, not for a moment, not for a memory, but because she was truly home. The end.